Welcome to After Wine School, the podcast that demystifies wine and makes it approachable for everyone. Join Keith Wallace and Alana Zerbe, two of the nation's leading wine experts, as they uncork everything you need to know about wine, from picking the right bottle to mastering unforgettable food and wine pairings. This isn't about stuffy lectures or confusing jargon. It's about enjoying wine the way it's meant to be. So grab a glass and let's dive in. Don't forget to subscribe to After Wine School today.
Welcome to the After School Podcast. This is the Wine School Podcast, and I'm Keith Wallace. This is Alana Zerbe, and we're going to be talking about the wines of France today.
That's exactly right, Keith. But before we do, we'd like to thank our sponsor, the National Wine School, and we also want to put a disclaimer right away to say that anything we say in this podcast does not represent the views or opinions of the National Wine School. They are solely our own.
Yeah.
You really are.
So I just, anarchy. That's right.
It's with France.
It does. Yes, it does. Also beheading, also monarchy, also elitism. Wow. Yeah. So why are we talking about France today?
Today, I am teaching a class called Classic France. And so behind you are some of the wines that we'll be trying in today's class. And basically, we do a nice little tour around the hexagon, as they call it.
Yeah, and I like it because it is actually some of the just your good standards of what French wine is.
Mhm.
So yeah, you are doing first off, Burgundy, right?
Burgundy.
I mean, I love, so you're doing a good from the Côtes de Beaune,
That's right.
and you're also doing a,
If I could just stop you, Keith.
sorry,
Since we're doing a podcast,
yes,
I'm going to say
yeah, I shouldn't be quick.
coat.
I know.
Actually worth. I mean, I
It is,
feel
it's
kind
really
of
poor.
douchey, but
No,
it
it
actually
is.
is helpful. COTES is pronounced coat. So
That's true. And, because I have to get that through my head because they're all, one COTE is one hill. Coates is many hills,
yes,
but they're pronounced the exact same way,
exactly.
which drives me crazy. I always want to differentiate because there was the original, like if you talk about Rhone, there was the original Côte de Rhone, like when it was basically one hill. But then when it expanded, it became the Côte de Rhone, many hill. But when you say that, it makes no sense.
Exactly.
Unless you're French.
Yes, exactly. And maybe not even then. But
Right.
when we do Italy, you
Yeah.
can definitely give me notes on my pronunciation. So
Yeah,
I've opened myself up
yeah.
to that. But that's pretty not
All right. Okay. That's true. That's true. Okay.
Okay.
So, but a nice from the Beaune region. I
Yes.
love that. You're also doing your first wine will be a Chablis, I think.
Chablis.
Good, which is another fantastic, so Burgundy's pushing in strong there. Is that, why is so much Burgundy?
Why is there so much Burgundy? Well, it's interesting because Burgundy is becoming more and more difficult to source, especially for education purposes.
Oh, yeah.
But really, Burgundy is one of the first places, I think, where French wine identity reaches its peak. In Bordeaux, of course, we have the home of the luxury wines, the cult wines.
Yeah.
But Bordeaux is interesting in its history, as we talk about in the advanced class together, that there's really
Yeah.
a confluence of cultures. The Dutch, the British, all have a big role to play. Burgundy is really this quintessentially French area, and it's beautiful. It's pastoral. It's everything you would imagine in a beautiful wine region.
Oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, because Burgundy really is that starts with the monks and then it goes into the duchies.
Yes.
And then it is very French and kind of like the Loire Valley is.
Yes.
But Bordeaux is very much this confluence of cultures.
Yeah.
And which is wonderful. Yeah, they're very much night and day, which is really fascinating having that in the same class. And here's the thing I will bring up about purchasing, because everyone, when you do a class like this, people have the same problem we have. Like, how do you afford these things? Now, for me, it's a little easier because I can spend a lot of money. And if I want to buy a great Burgundy, I can,
Sure.
because that sort of diffuses across the tens of thousands of dollars we spend on wine. But I have a trick on how I buy, and it's very important for folks when you're looking to buy French wines, And the best case example is actually one you have on your class tonight.
Yes.
And so, okay, now I love Chicken Dust.
Yeah.
I know you do too. So
Yeah.
whenever we have it, I try to have it. But the hard thing is that it's now become so famous. It's as expensive as Chateauneuf de Pop. So oftentimes, like, why would I get Chicken Dust when, especially for a class where people, it'd be better suited for people to know Chateauneuf de Pop if you're spending the same price point. So here's how I buy. And it's when I find, I don't buy it all the time. And I only buy it when one thing happens, when the prices get dropped down and to the point where it's about 30% lower than Chateauneuf de Pop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so that's what I'll buy, because Chicken Dust wants to have it is an elite wine region, and they do push their own prices up to where Chateauneuf de Pop is, because that is their vision of their wine region. Even they're very close together, by the way. They're very, very close. And I tend to prefer Chicken Dust. Most people know and love Chateauneuf de Pop. So here's this tension. But once in a while, because they can't sell enough wine, the Chicken Dust can't sell enough wine, their prices will drop. Only for a short period of time. Every year you'll see this small little dropping, and where the prices, and then the suppliers, the distributors here in the United States and the wine shops, they all drop their prices for a short period of time, push out inventory, and then the prices go back up to maintain that elite price point.
Oh, okay.
I just wait. I don't buy just because I love something. I just don't buy it. I know enough about the economics of the wine trade that I wait. And it's one thing you can always do. If you know something that you love, wait. There's going to be a point where if people aren't buying it, it will dip. That won't happen in Burgundy.
Right.
It won't happen in Chateauneuf de Pop usually, but it will in all the other places that are almost as famous, but not quite.
The satellites. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why. So I just, as soon as this bottle of Chicken Dust, usually it's like $35. It came into our state here, into our local wine shops for $20.
Really?
Yeah. So I just bought it up.
Wow.
And that's what I'll do. And then I'll sit on it for like 6 years, and I'll pull them out once in a while for classes. Right now it's a little too young, but in the next 6 years or so, it'll be perfect. But that's because I have a large wine cellar, and that's so allows us to do that. But that's one of my tactics for buying wine is to actually hold my horses and wait for the economics to catch up with.
And so in the calculus of data, when you're looking at making a purchase, you're not thinking so much about producer or vintage. You're looking at place as the prime data point.
Yeah. So absolutely. So my prime data point is the place. In France, especially. France, there's so much riding on quality levels within each wine region. There's a push towards very high level production, very high quality production. But what I also do is then my secondary piece of information is history of that producer. Are they consistently doing great stuff? That's my second piece.
Okay.
I will consider that once I see, but it's, I want to make sure that I'm buying a wine region, the price point is really good. And 3, you also have to have a history of really high quality production. If I have those 3, then I'm buying it consistently. Now, as a 4th, if I don't have those 3 points of data, the 4th piece is actually like if there's wine reviews, if there's some reviews somewhere out there from a reputable agency like Wine Spectator, Wine Advocate, then I'll consider those as well. Like, okay, that's another good data point. That's how I do it.
But vintage, you're not really.
No, I'm
concerned
not.
about.
Burgundy, yes. Burgundy, absolutely yes. Anything that's really cool weather, I will.
Oh,
But
okay.
but not for Bordeaux, not for anywhere else. Largely because modern winemaking is such that there's vintage variations, but we use so much technical acumen. We have so much knowledge now that we don't really have bad vintages. And because bad vintages really are if it's watery and it's underripe and diseased. We don't have those problems anymore. We have sorting tables. so much
So many
technology,
controls.
so many
Yeah.
controls in place that I don't worry about that.
Okay.
The only time I worry about that is if there's like some like really small rinky-dink wine operation in in a band of really questionable weather patterns. Other than that, you just don't come across bad wines anymore. And so that's why I don't really worry about good vintage, bad vintage. Because at the other hand, also is you have to realize that in the wine trade, when we say something's a bad vintage doesn't mean it's a bad wine. It means we're making less wine. And for a winery, that's bad.
Right.
You know, a good vintage is when we're making a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to see if they're saying whether they're talking about quality or quantity. And this is where you have to know where those numbers are coming from
Interesting.
and where that's for me, yeah, and for anybody.
After Wine School is proudly supported by the National Wine School, the gold standard in professional wine certifications. Whether you're dreaming of a career in the wine industry or just eager to take your wine knowledge to the next level, the National Wine School has you covered. Their programs are trusted, rigorous, and designed for aspiring wine pros like you. Visit wineschool.us to learn more and start your journey today.
Okay, I do have another question for you. A couple of the wines that we have today are
Yeah.
biodynamic.
Oh, yes.
Le bio.
Yes. It's hard to say that with a straight face. Libio.
Actually, I'm sorry, that is organic.
Yeah.
Biodynamic is biodynamic.
That's right. That's right.
Does that come into your calculus at all?
It doesn't, but that's a knock on because here's the thing about whether you're organic or biodynamic. If you're able to pull that off and you also have a consistency of high quality, that is just a flex. That is just saying, look at what we can do, who we are. And that just shows a really great level of my favorite kind of winemaking, which is somewhat non-interventionist,
Right.
where you're skilled enough where you're not having to manipulate.
Yeah.
Or that's really good for me, but that's a secondary. But when I see that, I will look at that. I'm like, oh, cool.
Well, I was excited because today the Southern Rhone White
Yes.
that I'll be showing, which don't sleep. We're talking about Chateauneuf de Pape, and everybody assumes red wine, but
Yeah.
do not forget about the white wines of the area. They are outstanding. One of the bottles I'm showing tonight is from Domaine Monterius in Baccarat, which
yeah.
I have beautiful memories of. And I
Yes.
think the thing that strikes you when people are organic, sustainable, biodynamic, they have such a close relationship with the land.
Yes.
And you can really feel it if you're there. And that's what excites me a lot about wine.
Oh, yeah. And you're right about that because it is really a focus of being a closed loop. And being a closed loop also means you, as a person, you're paying a lot of attention. You're not sourcing your grapes outside of what you're making and growing it. It really forces your hand to be very narrow. And sometimes being narrow is not being narrow-minded. Being very narrow means you really are having a consideration of every single input and output. And that's really hard. That means there are no shortcuts at all. And that just makes you better at it. That's what I like about it. It does force you to be exceptionally good.
Yes. Yes. So if you were going, I feel like I'm quizzing you today. I actually very rarely get this opportunity to just have you answer a bunch of questions for me. If you had the whim right now to buy a top shelf wine, what region in France would you pick? Where would you go if you were going to buy something that, breaks the bank a little bit?
Is it my money or someone else's money?
That's it. Both. Yes.
Look, if it's not my money, then I am, then La Tâche, Gevrey Chambertin, that's really where
Sure.
That's not my money. And I don't have to pay attention to any kind of quality or value because I just really want to try that.
And let me say, La Tâche is a famous monocle owned by Romani Conti, sits next to the famous Romani Conti vineyard. And so that is, that is a unicorn wine if ever there was one.
Yes. And that is what I really would love. And the hard thing is that all the other wines I've had. So, honestly, I would really want to try some older Petrus. If it was my money, it would be Petrus. Yeah. That side of, the right bank of Bordeaux is just one of my favorite places. And it's just because it seems so sedate. Where the other side, the left bank, is so over the top and sometimes just a little too much. It's a lot. Over there, it's just so quiet, and you just drive through. It was just one of those, I was just remember driving, looking, and like, oh, that's Patricia.
So is Petrus something you would spend your money on? Or
I would,
okay.
yeah. Latasha is with somebody else's money.
Yes.
Yeah,
And Petrus.
Patricia would spend my money.
High-end champagne, like
Yeah.
300, 400.
No.
Yeah.
No, because this is the thing about. I mean, I've had and I'm lucky to have such great champagne. But the truth is that there's only once you hit like $200-300, everything after that is just elitism and not. And even then, like even a lot of those. Sure, I love those vintage champagnes, but they're weird because they smell like the most expensive old sock you've ever had. I love those wines, but what I really I know they're just weird and lovely.
Cashmere socks.
Yeah, oh yeah. Cashmere socks worn by homeless man for a few years. Unhoused. Sorry. Yes. All right. I'll have to change my tasting notes. My offensive tasting notes now I have to. Yeah, they're going to be politically correct now. Like anybody can. Some of this. I've already offended everybody. Okay. The truth is that there's so much great champagne that I've had in that $40-50 grower champagnes that I'm not that curious about the more expensive. I'm just more curious about trying as many of these grower champagne producers as possible. Those aren't like those are 40, 50, maybe 70 at most. Still expensive, but not, because there's so much great stuff at that price. I mean, like just life-changing. So that's not where I want to go.
So in this class today, we are doing Chablis, and then we are doing the Southern Rhone Baccarat white wine.
Yes.
Then we move into the Haute du Beaune, our Pinot Noir from Burgundy. And then we're doing a Cab Franc from Saumur.
Classic.
And then we move into, we do have a Gigondas.
Yes, we do.
We were talking about it. An Haute Medoc Bordeaux. And then we're ending with Roussillon Village.
Yeah.
If I could make this 20 wines to taste
instead
of 7,
yeah,
maybe a little less than that. I'm just going to throw out some things that I would love to have on there and see if you agree.
Yes.
Number 1, Muscadet.
Absolutely hard to pick whether or not. Like when we were talking about this earlier, Muscadet was really high on the list.
Chenin Blanc.
Of course, yes.
Alsatian Riesling. I would love to show people, Tavel Rosé, one of my favorites.
We're going to have other Rhones, then how do you, I mean, it's geeky and lovely. Like Tavel it has that very unique way of how would they make it. It's a very specific kind of rosé. It's a rosé that doesn't drink like a rosé.
Champagne, obviously.
Yes.
We don't have time for that. But I would love to show a white Bordeaux. That's, me. I love white wines and white Bordeaux, the mix of Sauvignon, and then end maybe with a Sauterne.
Oh yeah. But there's Chenin Blanc again. I know. Well, this is why, when we teach for sommeliers, like the advanced France program, it takes 8 weeks. It takes 8 weeks, 8 wines, 8 weeks, and we're still not there yet. Like we still have to make choices. Like there's so many choices you have to make.
Yes.
Like, I want to really focus on, when I'm talking about France, I really want to focus on like the origin of Bordeaux. So that requires you talking about these really weird areas in the south, southwest, when you're talking about Loire Valley. But it's not just Chenin Blanc, but old Chenin Blanc. Like right now, like I have a couple of things for our next advanced sommelier program, including like a Chenin Blanc from 94. Like you really want to be able to taste. That's really important. Of all the old wines that people want to try in France, I think that's one of the most important ones because it actually does get so interesting and beautiful with age. Unlike most wines kind of deteriorate. That just is beautiful. It's nice because when you're dealing with the public, like this is a public class, we have to kind of have wines that are showstoppers.
Right.
So you want to have wines like people will wow at. But then when you're in a sommelier program, we get to do like the real nitty gritty, the really cool, intricate stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I love a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. Oh no, you're 100% right. There's so many. And Yeah, and for Bordeaux, I mean, the Sauvignon Gris, like that really weird one,
Oh, yeah.
that's just like this variation which comes in once a year, and I'll grab a bunch of it,
Mhm.
and they'll squirrel it away, and I actually it's like usually every couple 3 years I'll find those
Mhm.
wines. S I'll like a little squirrel, hide them away, and then we'll use them. So like that too, I'm like, "I wanna show that," but yeah, oh, and yeah, but definitely Semillon, like, the
Right.
classic Semillon,
Yeah.
have to show that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to bring it down to 7 wines, and yeah, and I like this list because it goes from, like, high acid, beautiful to really rich, voluptuous white wines are the same, and then going in then building, and then building out into bigger and bigger structurally wines until you get the end, a wine that people don't really know,
Mhm.
Roussillon, which I think, please,
Yeah.
more people need that in
Yes.
their life, and then, yeah, finish it off with, like, just boom.
Well, let's
Yeah.
finish off with a boom.
Yeah. I know, I gotta fly because I gotta go outside right now and check everyone in for your
That's
class.
exactly right. This is After School the
Yeah.
Wine podcast.
It is something yeah.
Thank you so much, folks. We hope you enjoyed this. If you have any suggestions, additions, let us know. Hit us up in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks for spending time with us on After Wine School. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss out on more wine wisdom, tips, and laughs. Until next time, raise your glass, savor the moment, and cheers to you.